Howdy. Thanks for listening to Let the Movie Speak. Before we get started, we'd like to ask a favor of you.
It's a simple favor. If you could just rate and review our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you listen, that might help other ears get into our ecosystem here and hear another episode. Anyway, enjoy the show. Greetings, listeners. This is Travis.
What's crackin'? This is J Money.
Okay. We are back for the sixth, yes, and final installment of our heist series on heist movies. Justin, how did you enjoy the heist series?
It's been a little more complex in a good way than the 30s. I don't know how we lucked out with, we picked the movies, but we hadn't seen them all for the 30s, but it turned out to be a really strong mix overall of movies.
Yeah.
Obviously some were way better than others, but for the heist movies, the waves have been a little higher and lower.
Yeah.
The tide has come out and the moon has been in the equinox.
Yes.
I'll stop there.
Yeah.
But, so I've enjoyed it. Some of the movies, honestly, have been a bit of a letdown. I really wanted certain movies, especially Criss Cross, to be better than they were, but that's the way it goes sometimes. And super excited to talk about today's movie because I think we're ending on a really high note.
Yes, higher highs and lower lows, just in general.
Yeah.
But fun for sure. I think the bad movies were a little bit more fun bad than maybe the bad movies from the 30 series. But luckily, again, we're not gonna hold our cards too close to the vest. This isn't a bad one today. It's kind of a good one.
When I said a high note, I did not mean that I had just snorted a line of La Coca. This is a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
So very, very excited to talk about it.
So we'll get into Edgar Wright's 2017 Baby Driver, the youngest of all of the films that we have covered thus far. But before we do that, as we normally do, we're going to get into what we watched this week. And right before we do that, we just want to once again thank you guys for tuning in and bringing all of your comments and feedback and ratings and reviews and all the things on social media. We appreciate it. We do this out of the depths and the cockles of our heart. And we just hope that what we're bringing is something you want to hear, and we're going to keep doing it. So even if it's not, okay, whatever. But what do you say we tell them what we watched this week, Justin?
Let's roll tape.
You said roll tape, almost like a foreshadowing to
almost.
Okay. Well, before I tell you what is going to end my superhero movie viewing experience for some time, why don't you tell us what you watched this week?
Oh, okay. Well, since you're going to talk about superheroes, I guess I should too. So I started, if you've listened to the show at all, you probably have noticed that we have been watching WandaVision. That's now long in the past, and by the time this is released, people will have forgotten what that is, because that's the collective. It's a comment about collective memory in American society, Travis.
I got it.
Oh, thanks, man.
I smell what you're putting down. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Gracias, muchas.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to really kind of do a curveball, really dig deep, and watch the brand new thing on Disney Plus, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Having, yeah, okay, all right,
Heavy sigh.
yeah. So, watching the trailer for that, I was super discouraged. I don't know, like Travis, I feel like, hopefully to our credit, we try to kind of have a wide range of stuff we watch, right?
Yeah.
We're not just all about like Christopher Nolan pretentious films, and this is not meant to be like an art house podcast, although, hey, I mean, we do love some of that stuff, but it's not like that we just love film. Just freaking, I don't care if it's a kung fu movie, I don't care if it's a romantic comedy, do it well, and I'm there, because I think you and I both just love the form.
Yes.
So with that, I want to give, Falcon and the Winter Soldier a chance, and even have them watch the trailer. I think, well, gosh, hopefully it's not just a lot of kick puncher, and hopefully there's something
Kick puncher and fly
there.
guy. That's what it looked like.
The show starts out essentially as Kick Puncher and Fly Guy, or mostly just Fly Guy, with really good lines like "Red Wing, deploy," and a CGI freaking thing comes off of Anthony Mackie's CGI suit and goes wow 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 wow, and like shoots lasers and just does and it has no. So like best case scenario in the Marvel verse, when you have side characters that aren't real. I thought Doctor Strange did a really good job of pulling that off.
Yeah.
His cape is like a character, and it's kind of fun, and I would have expected that not to succeed. But I guess they were just saving the not success for Red Wing, because he freaking should have fell out of the sky and burned and exploded.
Wow.
But unfortunately, that doesn't quite happen in this episode anyway. Maybe that's how Sam Wilson will get really angry and turn into the Hulk or something.
That would be amazing if he became the Hulk, but flying Hulk.
That would be cool, huh? Hulk with wings.
Yes.
Anyway, you won't like me when I'm flying.
Oh my gosh.
So,
that was a groaner.
Anyway, he. So thankfully, this set action piece that kind of starts the show is mercifully over. And again, this is not like. This isn't because I think, like, we just need to have David Lynch always talking about his dreams for cinema to be compelling. I love action. Like, we're going to talk about Baby Driver today.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
The action that's choreographed in here is beautiful. It's wonderful. It's hecka fun to watch.
The set pieces are the movie.
Hecka.
Yeah, hecka.
Right. And unfortunately, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it's hecka not fun to watch. It's just a drag. It's just a bunch of CGI, and like, how many helicopters are going to come out at this guy?
All of them.
Just gets old after a while. Yeah, and really good lines from people on the ground like, he's outnumbered. It's like, you freaking idiots. He's been one guy fighting these people. He's always been outnumbered. What are you talking about? Anyway, so they come down.
They should just
the
dumb that down even more. There are a lot of helicopters up there.
They might. I think that line mercifully got cut.
Oh,
but
just barely. Yeah.
Unfortunately, other lines that are in there that are just as bad. So we have a little bit more of the problem of regular people being treated like idiots. Or so there's a side character that is a like military officer, but I don't know if I want to mention that, but there's this thing where it's like, oh, they have to just talk like they're like relatable. So that means they're idiots. And
right.
It's like, you cannot be a lieutenant in the United States Army and be like, yo, what's up? All right, this is what you feel me? It's like, what the heck is going on? It's not a cultural thing. I think the guy's, or maybe he's Hispanic. I don't know. I thought he was white, but on second thought, he might be Hispanic. But it's not like they're trying to make him a caricature. They're just trying to make him like some kind of hip, cool guy.
Yeah.
And instead, he just comes off as a buffoon. So, big fat fail there. But to this show's credit, once we get on the ground and we've stopped with the CGI onslaught, it does actually turn into what might be an interesting, closer study of these two characters. And, for I'll ruin a little bit of the major arc of this episode for you, Travis. And
ruin
then,
it.
And you can tell me what you think. So the beginning starts off with Sam, right? Sam Wilson, the Falcon, who has been given Captain America's shield at the end of Endgame, right? Steve passes it on to him. And Sam is pretty reluctant in Endgame, and I think, honestly, as the audience, I don't know if I just speaking for myself, but I was like, yeah, this guy he didn't earn it. Like, I guess we're passing the mantle, but like, what did he just freaking flies and punches people. I haven't seen the same kind of, like Captain America was Captain America, and that character worked because he was this embodiment of like, how good America could be, like, morally and ethically, and as a strong man.
Yeah.
And
Even when it
like,
meant going up against the military-industrial complex.
Right. Yeah. So, well, and I just don't get the same from Sam. It has nothing to do with like his history or
He's
like
a thinner character.
Yeah, there's not really much written. Just like
Yeah.
kind of the problem at first with WandaVision, right? But which kind of started to fix it from episode 1. So in the beginning of this episode, he gives the shield back to the Smithsonian, and he's like, you know what, guys? He gives this presentation like in front of a crowd when they're doing this Captain America, the unveiling of like a Captain America tribute or display or something at the Smithsonian. He says, essentially, I'm not Captain America. What made the shield great was the man behind it, and he's gone now. We don't have that anymore. And I was like, okay, interesting. That's fine. So the rest of the episode is him trying to work out family drama and, trying to help his sister who's got a really struggling family business, and just some interesting, they're very minor right now, but there's some interesting things that might turn into actual racial critique of America, which would be really great and bold for Marvel. For instance, when this guy, an Avenger, a world famous dude, sits down in front of a banker and is trying to argue like, hey, we need a small business loan or something. The banker says, he looks at Sam Wilson and says, "Where do I know you from? Did you used to play football from LSU?" And I was like, oh my gosh,
wow.
This guy that's a world famous, Avenger is, oh, you're a black dude. Do you play football around here? Like, oh boy. So a couple doozies in a good way, and the same for I don't remember the actor's name. Sorry, guys, but the guy that plays Bucky Barnes, he is given a lot of material, starting to take some interesting steps to talk about, his trauma of forcibly murdering people over the last half century or whatever. And it's done fairly well. They don't even come together at the end. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier are not. There's no "and" in this episode.
Yeah.
They're totally separate. And I think the kind of slower burn has been to this show's credit so far. So interested to see where they go with these characters. Now here's how this episode ends, Travis. We've had the Smithsonian, and they're like, all right, yep, you do. And this guy that takes the shield from Sam in the beginning, he says, thanks for doing this. You did the right thing by bringing this to us, right? It's like, okay, whatever. The end of the episode, Sam's sister says, Sam, sit down. You got to watch this. And she turns on the TV, and it's that same guy from the Smithsonian, and he's like, we've given another news conference, and he says, we need a new hero for today. We need someone that represents America's values. And out they parade this new guy in Captain America's garb with the shield.
Wow.
And so immediately it's like, oh, I mean, as me at least, personally as the audience, I went, oh my gosh, this is now I want Sam Wilson to be Captain America. And what a slap in the face that they're like, the black guy's not good enough. Let's go get a white guy and dress him up, and that'll make people feel better. So kind of a few unexpected turns. I can't really say if it's going to be good or not. I want to give it the benefit of the doubt, but hopefully more to come that is good. So that's what I got there, sir. Tell me about your superhero week.
Well, I'm just letting you know now. My commentary on this movie will not be as long as this movie.
Okay. How long is this movie?
This movie is 4 hours long, and so I think you know what it is.
4 hours. Is it Gone with the Wind?
Well,
that's not a superhero movie.
Not quite 4 hours. No, it is.
Oh.
It is Zack Snyder's Justice League, also known in layman's terms as the Snyder Cut. # Snyder Cut. So here's the thing: is I watched, I think not all of, but most of the DC newer stuff when I got HBO Max, like in this summer, because I was like, oh, they have all the Batman movies, and then I realized, oh, they have even the new, Batman v Superman and Man of Steel and all those. I've never even dipped my toe into the DC pool because I kind of went and saw Marvel movies for a while there in theaters like the rest of the world. But I didn't ever, I wasn't a comic book kid growing up, so I didn't have like Marvel or DC allegiance. And this kind of genre movie, the superhero blockbuster, was a little bit adjacent to my jam, which would be like Star Wars, or Indiana Jones or something Spielbergian. But so the Snyder movies, right? Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and then there was also the Patty Jenkins Wonder Woman and the Aquaman movie. Those are all like kind of up and down, well regarded and very not well regarded critically. And then you have this this cult of Zack Snyder acolytes, people who are so obsessed with him and his style and his freaking moody storytelling that he made a bunch of money with those movies, but not quite enough with those first two Superman flicks, and the second one being the Batman v Superman, that the studio was starting to lose some faith. And if you don't know the whole Zack Snyder chronicle about what happened around the Justice League movie, I'm not going to give you the bullet by bullet on it because it's all over the internet and you can go read for yourself. I would recommend, if you want to know like what happened in a well-written piece, not on some like nerdy blog that's not well written and is like, we want justice for Zack Snyder because blah, whatever. I sent this to Justin too, but there's a really good Vanity Fair article written by Anthony Bresnikan, and it's a lot more personal and interview based with Zack Snyder, and it really doesn't center around like controversy. It centers around what happened to him throughout that process. And basically the crux of it is the studio was losing faith and they were kind of babysitting him because they wanted the movie to be $1 billion Avengers level, box office explosion. And it didn't end up being quite that. It made plenty of money, and it was kind of okay reviewed by fans and kind of okay reviewed by critics, which was not, it didn't hit the bar for Warner Brothers it would be, right? And in the midst of shooting this movie, with all that kind of studio heat and the pressure of just what it's like to make a big blockbuster movie, Zack Snyder and his wife, they experienced a horrible loss. Their I think 20-year-old or 19-year-old daughter took her own life, and obviously shook their family to the core. And basically, the story that you read in the article is they just didn't feel like they could fight the studio fight while also trying to hold it together, through this terrible thing. So Joss Whedon comes in, and if you know Joss Whedon, it's like, back in the 90s, he was like the Buffy the Vampire Slayer guy on TV. He was like very popular TV writer. He also came into the Marvel universe, and he ended up directing, among other things, Age of Ultron, I think, which is not the best Marvel movie, but known for his like snappy, witty, kind of jokey style of like script punch-ups and that kind of stuff. So they brought him in to kind of do some reshoots and finish the job. And the movie that came out was not what Snyder wanted. The bottom line is the movie that came out in 2017 is not Zack Snyder's vision at all. In fact, only like 25% of Zack Snyder's footage was left, is sort of what people are saying anecdotally. So this movie has a long road, but now on HBO Max, you have something called Zack Snyder's Justice League. This is what he literally took with him from the production on his laptop. And this is what I'll say about it. It is fully uncut, right? If you've ever seen a director's cut of a movie like Blade Runner, or what's another director's cut example, Justin?
Peter Jackson with the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah, like the extended edition of those. And yeah, anything like that. This is, some director's cuts are just different cuts and they have some added footage, but it's like, I don't know, 10% maybe is kind of normal, 15%.
Yeah.
The Peter Jackson, epic Lord of the Rings movies have more than that, but it's like the scope kind of warrants it if you're looking for that. This is a lot more along the lines of something like that because you took a 2-hour movie. The studio had a 2-hour mandate. So the 2017 theatrical cut was 2 hours long, no longer. And this is 4 full hours. Like, we're talking 2 movies, basically. This is literally 2 movies. And what it is It's exactly what Zack Snyder wanted. So he did not take a paycheck to do this $70 million project of re-editing this movie. No reshoots were done. Only existing footage was used. And they did do some additional shooting, which are like a couple added scenes, but no reshoots of existing scenes. Just a ton of re-editing and putting stuff back in, basically. And what you can imagine is, when things get edited out of movies, sometimes it's not good, and those deleted scenes would have made things made sense. And sometimes, dang, that should have been left on the cutting room floor. I mean, holy cow, right? Like, not every movie needs everything that they shot, for goodness sakes.
Right.
And it's much the same here. I'm not a Zack Snyder fan. I think he has a very distinctive aesthetic style that has potential and like is singularly envisioned by him. You can't watch The 300 or Watchmen or anything that he's done, Sin City or anything like that, and not see that it's a Zack Snyder movie. And there's something to be said for that. He has a real artistic vision to the way he directs, but he also does a bad job telling stories. Like his storytelling ability, his narrative constructions are messy and exploitative to particularly women, but just like people and violence and stuff. It's just not my favorite dude to tell a story. And what you see in Justice League is basically a version of the 2017 movie, which sucked, by the way, that does a way better job of making sense of its massive scope of a story, a la like a Lord of the Rings, to be honest. There's a lot of this that feels like kind of like pseudo Middle Earth-y in how big it gets, because they bring in a whole new villain above the villain that existed in 2017. There's whole new sequences. All the sequences you saw in the 2017 version are shuffled or remixed or re-edited, and there's very little that looks that similar because it all aesthetically looks different. The story's told in a different way. It's got chapter cuts, 6 different parts or something like that. And okay, so this is the end all be all of it for me is it's too freaking long. 4 hours is too long. Maybe as a series on a streaming service, this would have made a lot more sense, and if you want to binge it, but I don't know, these 6 chapter marks really just cried out for breaks, walk away from it for a while. But more than that, it's there's so much in here that some of it makes the plot make more sense, and all this nonsense about MacGuffins called mother boxes that have to be found and collected so that this evil dark side Thanos type character in the DC universe can destroy the world. You got to get the team together like in the Avengers. All of that stuff is it's pretty par for the course, honestly. But everything that is good about this movie is better in Snyder's version. And then there's just a whole lot else that is not good still. It's so freaking CGI heavy and so morose. That's the one thing about Zack Snyder that I just don't, I just can't get on board with, is there's so little humor, and they really only use Ezra Miller's The Flash for humor. And it must be an acquired taste. It must be subjective comedy. This guy just kind of bothers me. He doesn't make me laugh. And for that reason, it's just there's not any laughs to be had, really. So there's some good action sequences. Everything that kind of worked in 2017 works better here. The characters all have way more meaningful arcs, but in the end, it's just a hot CGI soup of sadness and I can't help but think, Justin, I don't know, after reading that article that I know you read too, that a lot of this is filtered through not just his kind of morose style before his family tragedy, but now it's a lot of the characters they tussle with the idea of bad kid father relationship, and you see that 3 or 4 times in this movie. So yeah,
there's some guilt there. Maybe.
Yeah, perhaps some projected guilt, or just some lingering processing the grief, or whenever anyone in your family dies, you have that kind of what could I have done, or was this my fault, or that's just normal human process. But yeah, it's not fun. It's better than 2017, and it's super long, and it is my last superhero movie for a while. That's what I'm going to say. It just it sucked the life out of me.
And speaking of sucking the life out of you, let me ask you then, what was your favorite of these 3 from that movie? going to give you three options here.
Yeah.
The anti-life equation,
Oh my gosh.
parademons,
Yeah.
or mother boxes. Which of those is your favorite?
Of those three, my favorite is the anti-life equation because it doesn't show up enough to be stupid and ridiculous. I mean, it's stupid and ridiculous because they don't ever. It's one of those Easter egg. This is so annoying, dude. When they're constructing comic book universes, they just throw random stuff in that is, utter fan service for people who love the comic books, have been reading them for years and years. But for people who are just trying to watch a movie, it does not make any sense. Like they mentioned this thing, the anti-life equation, and it's like, okay, we know it's here on Earth. We have to find it because it can do bad things. And that's like, that's it. That's it. And it doesn't even really come into play. They say, at the end of the movie, it's like, well, we're going to have to find the anti-life equation and do this the old way or some. What is that? What are you talking about? Yeah, I don't know. Man.
It sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And then you gotta. So I think what DC fails to kind of realize is they have a way different universe they could carve out that would be more in line with their comic world, maybe.
Sure.
I was more of a Marvel kid, admittedly, but as a kid that enjoyed comics, which frankly is kind of weird to me now that it's just like in vogue for adults. It's like this is a medium that's created for like juveniles, so it's not necessarily gonna have a lot of merit forever for adults. But
beyond nostalgia,
anyway,
yeah.
That's not necessarily going to be a popular opinion, but feel free to give us a thumbs down. But it's just like the idea that DC seems to have is like, hey, Marvel is doing this. We own superheroes. Let's copy them, but darker. And it's
right.
like, no, it's not. That's a recipe for what you have, which is just a bunch of movies that overall are not very good. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that, there's great talent behind some of these movies, or a lot of them, but you can't see it through all the CGI, through the idea that it has to be super serious and somber.
You said they have different comic book universes, and I think on the one hand, that is what sinks the ship because, like, Zack Snyder, I think, does get this. I just don't think he knows how to, like, tonally adjust to give some humanity and some levity, like, mixed in with the idea that, yes, the DC, superheroes are gods among men. They're not people with superheroes and superhero powers. Like, there's a difference there. And, they're not imbued with special powers because they got bit by a spider. It's like Superman came to Earth because he's a literal alien among us, So, I mean, there's a difference there, but there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way to pull this off that's not such like nasty medicine to swallow. It's just so like mournful and morose, It's just so like, it's like walking through molasses trying to get to the point of these things.
And like we've talked about before, Travis, with Snyder seems to kind of want to take like a Greek mythology approach.
Oh
which
yeah,
as
for
an
sure.
approach would be beautiful. I would love to see somebody who was different take the reins and make that like how can we make the DC universe kind of like the heroes of old in the Iliad? Instead of Achilles, we've got Aquaman. But what makes the Iliad or the Odyssey, or any of those old myths, if that's the route they want to go, work to me, is that yes, they dealt with very powerful, very human themes, albeit on a godlike scale. But then they still had times where these characters sang and where they danced and when they laughed and there was peace for a time. And so that's just totally missing. Everything is always in crisis, and these heroes just run from miracle to miracle. And the sky is literally falling all the time.
Yep.
And it just makes for no one's going to be eating shawarma after
no.
in the DC universe.
Yeah.
They're all going to be injecting heroin into their arms, and
as they do at the end of the Snyder Cut. They all do that. It all happens. Yeah.
Well, and you're talking about the end, and doesn't in the end they have another cameo from another superhero, Martian Manhunter or whatever? It's like why? Why are we doing that?
That just feels very par for the course for all these franchises. It's like we got to throw something in here to pull you into the next one, even though there won't be a next one because Snyder's probably not coming back. So
right.
I mean, it's his vision for what would have happened next. But yeah, there's it's all of that Easter egg buffoonery to like drag you into the next movie without making a good one right now, which is so frustrating.
Yeah.
And it's also like he just feels like he has to put a harder edge on things, which is very in line with like, post 9/11 filmmakers like Chris Nolan, who executive produced this and his first movie, Man of Steel, and I think did like script stuff with him on that one too. So I mean,
good job.
Yeah, it's not my jam. I don't think Batman dropping the F-bomb is like cool in and of itself. I just think it's like, look at me, I can make Batman do this, and it's not fun.
Yeah, and then speaking of not fun, again, we're talking about comic book characters.
Yeah.
So as a medium, generally speaking, these comics were made for us when we were kids.
Yeah, these for sure. Yeah.
Our parents when they were kids. And I used to play with a Batman action figure, and I watched Batman cartoons, and I tried to use Batman's grappling hook toy from the action figure to climb over the garden wall, and my mother saved me probably from killing myself before I got too high up. But there's just the childlike wonder and the goodness of those characters. That's all ruined when you have characters say "fuck the world."
Yeah,
it's like, what if this franchise isn't supposed to sell kids toys? And I get there's the whole like Star Wars kind of devolved just into selling action figures. But I mean, we're talking about characters that like that's their primary medium.
Yeah,
they came to film. Film didn't beget them.
Yes.
So I feel like the irreverence kind of for the source material just alienates little Susie and little Johnny.
Yeah, if your mom had seen the Snyder Cut, she might have let you fall off the wall and kill yourself. That's all I have to say.
This is the way, baby.
Should we get into something more fun than the Snyder Cut?
Let's get out of here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm getting depressed.
What's in the case?
That information isn't necessary.
Is it heavy? Is it explosive? Is it chained to some unlucky bloke's wrist? We're gonna have to chop it off?
All right.
What is it?
What in the bag she gave you?
She didn't give me a bag. Melanie was not a part of the plan.
Oh, no, we can get through the rock. No worries there. Easiest thing in the world. Why, we just blow right through it.
10 ought to do it, don't you think? You think we need one more? You think we need one more? All right, we'll get one more.
Hey, speaking of one more, hey, let me just reel you in, dear listener, because next season, we had 10. We had 10 for the 30s. 10 movies.
Yes.
Check it out. The 40s, we've moved ahead one decade. Do you think we need one more? We sure did. So get ready for 11 movies from the 40s, everybody.
Yes.
All right? Buckle up.
11 from the 40s because we could not whittle it down to 10, and there weren't 12 that made sense.
Well, that's true, too.
I mean, there were, but like, if we don't cut ourselves off, I mean, the 40s have, I would say like I was less familiar with the 30s, so the 40s stuff I was looking at was like, ooh, this all looks so good. I just like a little bit more interested because I just know some of those titles better, not necessarily seen them more, but yeah, I'm stoked to get into the 40s, man. That's gonna be a blast.
It shall be. It shall be a ring-ting kind of day. That was supposed to be like a Frank Sinatra thing, but I'm pretty sure he never said ring-ting.
He definitely didn't roll his R's like some weirdo.
He did. Oh, it's Frank Sinatra.
Okay.
Yeah.
Baby Driver 2017.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. This is an Edgar Wright joint. And
okay.
I kind of want to save the cast stuff for the meat and potatoes because I think we're going to center around them. But it's got a great cast overall, full of people and maybe a few you don't. But Edgar Wright as a director and writer strikes me as the guy who really did have like pretty full creative control, not unlike Thief by Michael Mann or something like that. This is my first time seeing Baby Driver. Justin, what about you?
I was privileged to see it in the theater. I guess I'm getting older because I thought that was like 6 months ago, but apparently 2017 was not 6 months ago. That's what my doctor told me today.
Yeah.
So
and then he said, take these pills. Yeah.
It was right. I mean, you got to take. What I learned is you have to take all of them, not just the ones where you're like, oh, blue looks fun.
I think you might want to get a new doctor.
The doctor was like, well, no, and to the doctor's credit, she had to steer me in the right direction.
Right.
She's like, no. Justin, you have to take these all.
They go in your mouth.
Oh, okay, right. And so that was the problem. I was doing some experiments and they weren't working out. But anyway, back to Baby Driver. Yes, I did see it in the theater long before I started therapy.
Right.
And really enjoyed it. Was really fun. And I don't know if you saw the trailer for this when it came out, but
I remember the trailer.
The trailer's popping with personality.
Yes.
And the trailer does sell the movie as it is.
Yes, that's true.
And so to Edgar Wright's credit and the editor's credit especially, which is a discussion hopefully we can have a little bit. This movie really comes together. This is a work of technical art.
Yeah.
And it's not just this is a really well-rounded movie. I think it has some heart, it has some emotion.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sacrifice technicality. Doesn't mean that there's no story, and vice versa. So it's kind of a rare bird.
Yeah.
And overall, this is a movie to me that is increasingly rare, especially just talking about Justice League.
Yeah.
This is a movie where, this is what movies, even though this is 2017, right? We've always had those movies from the 30s, from the beginning of film, that are just fun to watch.
Sure.
They're just like, I love this experience, going to the movie theater and watching a movie and just enjoying it, and being to escape a little bit, but, hopefully have something to chew on too. And this movie is very much in tradition of that, I feel like. This is a movie that I enjoy watching, and that doesn't ask me to, think about whether I want to kill myself at the end.
Yeah.
But does actually have something to say.
Yeah,
So-
there's good, actions and consequences happening here. It's not all fluff and just fun, but man, it is a whole bucket of fun. And the Academy recognized the editing, sound mixing, and sound editing nominated for all those three things. It didn't win any of them because of a man who we've already mentioned on this episode, whose name is Christopher Nolan, in his film Dunkirk.
And thank goodness the Academy never errs, like the Pope.
Right.
They're just perfect. So that's really cool that we can trust their decision making.
Absolutely.
I think that's kind of a slap in the face for this movie. We're Christopher Nolan is talented, maybe a bit pretentious, as we've discussed.
Yeah.
To me, this is a clear winner.
Yeah,
from
and I mean,
2017.
can they ever just choose fun over Dunkirk? I'm sorry,
Right.
but war movies get such a leg up at the Oscars. It's just
And it's
ridiculous.
ridiculous. And it doesn't matter if it's Schindler's List, worthy,
Right.
or The Hurt Locker, which is like, what are we? Why?
Yeah.
Why, guys?
Why?
But anyway,
All you guys.
I don't know the answer. I don't think they know the answer.
What's your history with Edgar Wright? Have you seen his earlier stuff, and what did you think?
Yeah, I've seen Hot Fuzz,
Yep.
which I enjoyed, and I was interested in seeing Scott Pilgrim. Haven't seen that, so that might be the only other Wright movie I've seen. How about you?
I think I've seen a few. So Shaun of the Dead is awesome. Hot Fuzz is excellent, and I saw The World's End, which is like the third in that Simon Pegg, Nick Frost trilogy, where they're some version of friends throughout the ages. And all super fun. Hot Fuzz is my favorite of those three, which is it's like making fun of action movies, classic action movies, like Point Break and all those. And then I think that's it until Baby Driver, but he is doing a Stephen King adaptation at some point, and now
You must be excited,
I'm
you
pretty
Stephen
excited.
King fan.
Well, it's The Running Man, so it's not like a straight horror. It's like a dystopian. It came out with Schwarzenegger in the '80s. It's like a dystopian reality show.
Well, dude, if Schwarzenegger's been there and done that, it's never going to be done better. As it's said.
Yeah.
It's just common knowledge.
I had forgotten about that rule, but
Right.
I might watch it anyways. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think we both have a little bit of Edgar Wright history. We like what we saw so far. This was our intro section where we hatched the plan, and now let's see what the goods are.
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off.
I want to take over his operation, and I need you to help me break it.
What to do to me, eh? I've got Jessel's money.
I thought it was understood that when it came to our little enterprise, Mom
What's the word?
All right. We've already talked about this in our heist series a few times, and I think we're going to keep coming back to the idea that this was a fantastic way to end this series because it's a much more modern film. You know, it's only 5 years old, you know, and there's a lot of imprint, I think, Justin, from what we've watched so far in this movie. And it takes all those things and kind of gathers them up and puts them in the Edgar Wright blender of style and, you know, just like snappiness. But I think we would be best served. I'm going to read the log line because it's one you could put on a napkin like a lot of these heist movies are. And then let's just pick characters, I think. Does that sound okay to you?
That sounds really good. And just before you do that, I have to ask, are you painting while you're doing this podcast? I mean, I could look across the table, I guess, and look at you.
I'm painting a small mural. I mean,
okay,
is that wrong?
Because I hear a sound like you just dropped the paintbrush in a cup of water.
Well,
and so
I made a mistake. And
it's happening again.
I don't know what you're talking about. So I'm gonna read the log line, and then we'll go through some characters.
Okay.
Here's the log line.
Ross.
After being coerced into working for a crime boss, a young getaway driver finds himself taking part in a heist doomed to fail. That's pretty on, I feel like, pretty on point. And the reason I think going through characters at a time might make more sense is because this movie, the plot is a little bit, who cares? Like, this guy drives really well. He gets involved with some folks he shouldn't be, and he has a love interest. That's it, right? Like that's right. Kind of all you need to know. It does take some interesting twists and turns, but it's not like a plot-driven movie. It's a character-driven movie, wouldn't you say?
Yes. No, absolutely. And Baby Driver, you know, the main character's name is Baby. There you go. If you haven't seen the movie, now you can figure it out.
B-A-B-Y.
B-A-B-Y drives this movie.
Okay.
I don't know why Forrest Gump is saying that. But, yeah. Bye-bye.
Baby Driver.
Mama always said driving a car is fast and furious. Yeah, it's a crossover.
His mom was really weird, by the way.
Fast 13. Yeah. Forrest Lives.
Yes.
It's going to be really good.
Forrest Lives. Oh, we should put the poster for that up on our socials. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, he is the driver, and if we want to get to little Christopher Nolan, he drives the picture.
That's right.
Right into your living room.
Yes.
Rolling the R's again, folks. Yeah, this is a story where from start to finish, it's kind of dependent on what all the other characters are kind of moved. If you step back and think about it, I think they're all moved by the choices that Baby makes.
Yeah.
And so while he does seem very much like an accessory to the machinations of everyone else, by the movie's end, it's pretty clear that he is kind of the agent of change in this movie. So
yes. So Ansel Elgort as Baby, he's the lead. We'll keep coming back to him, but in general, there's a point, you know, later on in the movie where he has a line that he says to Deborah, his love interest waitress at Bo's Diner, I think is what it's called.
Bo's Diner. What do you have?
I'll have a box of chocolates. No. He says, I want us to head west on the 20 in a car we can't afford with a plan we don't have. Keep driving and never stop. And that is totally a line. I don't know if you kind of felt this, Justin, but like if that was in voiceover in the asphalt jungle, we would have made fun of it.
Yeah, totally.
But it works because Ansel Elgort is like, he's selling this like subdued, he gets rid of all the hamminess from that dialogue on the page, and it just fits within this big puzzle of like, it's stylized consistently and well. It's not like some normal kind of feeling movie where someone says something crazy hyperbolic sounding like that. It all kind of goes together.
Yeah, and in the movie, even though I think there are times when we're asked, and I think we're willing to suspend our sense of belief to participate in this movie. There's other times where the movie wants to kind of wink at you with that. I'm thinking of especially when the character Darling makes her little brief monologue about Buddy.
Yes.
To Jamie Foxx's Bats
Yes.
character. And it's just it is exactly that. It's hammy, it's over the top, it doesn't belong in any movie, definitely not this one. And then Jamie Foxx calls it out. He starts clapping and says, "That's some Oscar shit right there," or something. And it's like, yes, that's the way to handle that line for this universe. So it seems really aware of how to, but it's able to sell things that are really kind of serious. I'm thinking of maybe it's probably a little too early, but if we can circle back to one of Kevin Spacey's last lines, that we're really able to have characters say things that are meaningful and that bring us a lot deeper into their kind of psyche and into this world, but all while having fun. Man.
Yeah, and it kind of plays in the archetypes, but it deepens those characters, and I think that's what you're getting to with Kevin Spacey's Doc, right? Let's just go to him, and we'll bounce around. He plays, it's not really the antagonist. I guess he becomes the antagonist at some point, but really, Baby is he's up against his own choices, or his own unfortunate circumstances, or whatever you want to argue there. Like he's not so much fighting against Kevin Spacey personally as he is the world he finds himself in. But Doc, Kevin Spacey's character, is our big bad for sure. Like if we're talking about thief parallels, he is our Leo, right? He's our Robert Prosky. And he's so stinking good in this movie. I mean, like I almost always love a Kevin Spacey performance because he has that just like raw charisma. He brings himself to the role, but just like whip smart timing on the dialogue. And I'm not sure if that's his instinct plus Edgar Wright or the script being so tight or what, but like his verbal, like comedic timing is so good. He plays this bad villainous character in a way that's sort of like bookish and nerdy, like he's got a little case for his Hot Wheels that he uses to show how the different heists are going to go down. He puts those all back into their little spots, but at the same time, he also has lines like, "Well, I don't need to tell you I can break your legs and kill everyone like, and he just says it like under his breath. So he has that menace to him, but it's also not like, it doesn't feel the need to be like puffery. Like he just says it matter-of-factly.
He also, because this movie is fun and you're kind of in this very visual, very, very Edgar Wright universe, you also get away with him, bringing his nephew along at one point.
Oh, that's so good.
Who's like, chip off the old block or whatever he says. It's just like, that's the family business, is whatever kind of crime he's in.
Just all bad things. Yes.
It's not quite played tongue in cheek, and I really don't know who else could do it as well as Kevin Spacey. It's just, and that goes really for just about all the actors and actresses in this movie. There's no miscasting here.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to think of anybody else playing any of these characters. I mean, especially if we could go down to Jamie Foxx as Bats.
Yes.
I mean, how much fun is it to have someone who is really sadistic, and who is really menacing and just angry, and frightening, but then to be able to like laugh, when he says some of this stuff,
Not groovy JD.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just, man, it's such a beautiful portrayal, and I think for Doc, and now talking about Bats, there's something true about all these characters in this movie, but individually, I think there's something that, unlike Justice League, right? There's something relatable about these characters.
Yeah.
There's something like, I kind of know that guy, even, and it doesn't mean, I don't mean I know some kind of crime kingpin in Atlanta that likes Hot Wheels, but I, you know a guy that maybe is not involved with stuff that he should be, or that is really smart and intelligent like that, but who still has a heart.
Yeah.
So like at the end with Doc, he's ready, really, like Baby is kind of unraveled Doc's whole universe, and doesn't really even seem to grasp that. And so he's kind of going to Doc for help, and Doc's like, "Screw you, kid.
Yeah.
Like, get out of here." And then he sees Deborah, who is, Baby's love interest, and it just just like that, he switches like,
Yep.
and you buy it in the movie, which is what's so amazing. It's
That's
not
amazing,
like what, how did that happen?
I thought he
It's
was going to
just
try
like-
to kill her because he says like, "Oh, look at you two. Now come
Yeah.
come grab your tape,"
Yeah.
right? And then he just lets him grab his tape, and you're like, "What just happened?" And then in the elevator, he has that line where he says, "I was in love once too," or whatever, you know. And
Man,
that's
yeah.
it. That's the whole turn. But it's to take it back to Robert Prosky and Thief. It's like we see Leo in that movie go from the warm, kind of inviting, you know what, come on, we're going to make some money together, it's going to be fine. You're not really scared of him at first, and then he devolves into
Right.
like Satan in the flesh, like horrifying. Kevin
Right.
Spacey comes off as, more aggressive and villainous, and then at the end he has this really interesting, I'm not going to call it a redemptive arc, but he does show like dimension and humanity. Like that's, and how does Edgar Wright get us to buy into that is the real question.
That is the $1 million question, man. And I think the answer might be that he invites us to experience each of these people individually, and then because even like with Joe Bernthal's character that shows up in the beginning, right?
Yes,
he's in the movie for 5 minutes or whatever. And,
I love him as a character actor, by the way. He's really good.
man, and not as the Punisher.
I didn't even watch it.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, don't start now.
Yeah.
And it's not his fault. No disrespect to you, John.
That movie, that series could have been directed by Zack Snyder.
Wasn't it?
It seems like it, yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, it's just, I think Wright has this ability to, as reflected, because this movie, to Mr. Wright's credit, he does not always play in the same sandbox. He's willing to, yes, it's very distinctively his style and his visual kind of, eccentricities in a very positive way, but this is not Hot Fuzz.
No.
This is not Scott Pilgrim versus the World. You'd never get that confused, even if you can tell it's the same director.
Yeah.
And so in this movie, I feel like, at least in the limited purview and experience I have with his filmography, it's really clear that this movie is much more concerned about getting your heart invested in these characters. And so even though John Bernthal, whatever his character's name is, Griff or something, okay, even though he is not nice, there is still something very he's not reduced to no one's one dimensional. I think that's the first part of the equation.
Yeah.
He's probably pretty violent, but and not a nice person, obviously, in the way he talks to Baby.
Yep.
But you still buy him as a human being, and I think that's true for everybody. It's true for Doc. It's true for Deborah. Everyone is a human being.
Yeah.
So when they have some kind of tragedy, and even Bats, Bats is evil, but you get that he's still a human. He's not just some kind of monster.
Yeah.
He's not Dracula. He is still a guy. He's just a guy that's been through who knows what. Obviously some hurt and some tragedy. And he's just chosen, like, this is my road. I mean, what does he say when Buddy's like, hey, can you get me some gum? And he throws a bunch of gum in the back, just boxes. And Buddy's like, what, did you steal this? He said, you said you wanted gum. What am I supposed to do? Pay for it?
Yeah.
It's like that. I mean, that's just such a beautiful insight into how that character would think.
Yeah.
And so going back to your question, I think we buy Kevin Spacey's turn because we've already bought him as a human being.
Yeah,
we've already bought him as a guy that is real. So no, even though he was kind of the big bad when he's like forcing Baby to do these drives, at the end, even though it's all fallen apart and Kevin Spacey's enterprise is over, I think we buy that he is kind of a father figure for Baby.
Yeah.
And so he sees like, oh, Baby's found happiness. He's found his Deborah. All right, Baby, let me grab my sawed-off shotgun and see if I can get you out of here, boy.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of sweet, and you kind of...
And then he dies horrifically.
And then he gets shot and run over.
Oh, when he gets run over, man, that is like the violence in this movie is, it's so tonally like consistent that like it kind of straddles the line of being kind of gratuitous, but he always like has just enough fun with how these people get dispatched, but cuts away at the right time too. You know what I mean? That's like a really neat trick. One guy who sticks around for longer and has 9 lives seemingly is John Hamm as Buddy, right?
Oh, man.
He is, I mean, John Hamm's just like, again, if you've watched Mad Men or anything he pops up in, he's just like liquid charisma, this guy. He just like owns the screen. He's so funny. Like, he is such a good comedic actor at times. You know, he's not like flexing those muscles big time on Mad Men, but when he pops up in bit roles and stuff, he can really do like comedic timing really well. And in this movie, he plays perhaps the most like sane and reasonable seeming of all of the thief people, the lackeys to Doc. And you get a little bit of insight into him as well. He comes from, you know, Wall Street, and so he's kind of a white collar guy turned bad, and he has obviously has a coke addiction because he keeps talking about filling his nose bags or whatever. And this lady on his arm the whole time, who's sort of his downfall in a way because she kind of goes rogue. But yeah, I loved John Hamm in this. He sidles up to Baby in really interesting ways. He defends him at times, but then when it comes down to it and Baby's trying to make a run for it, you know, he says like, "Don't make me do this." You know what I mean? Like, there's this really great, you know, human moment there. And then right later on in the film, when Darling, his sweet lady, has been, you know, murdered in front of him, he turns on Baby, which is kind of logical, right? Like, Baby got them into this mess with turning this heist sour, and then he doesn't have any modus operandi other than to try to dispatch Baby.
Yeah, and to Hamm's credit, yes, I loved in Parks and Rec when he shows up at the end as, you know, like the idiot intern or something. Oh, yeah. You know, that they're always trying to fire. He's like, "All right, guys, well, I'll be at the subway." Yeah. You know, it's so good. So yeah, I agree. Hamm is super funny. And like you said, from Mad Men or anything else Hamm has done, you know that he has incredible dramatic chops.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the first time I've seen Hamm in a role where he's one of those actors, man, that can just convey it all with his eyes if he needs to. So you've got him in the diner where Darlene gives that really ridiculous monologue to Bats about, you know, like, that ends with like, "When my buddy sees red, the only thing you're going to see is black," or something really ridiculous like that. But Hamm's eyes, like, she could not say anything, and I'm not saying that she shouldn't, because I think that the whole point of that scene is really well done. But just the way Hamm looks at Bats, it sells it, man.
And it's like, you said the dialogue's ridiculous, and it is. And so Jamie Foxx's character says like, "Oh, nice speech. Did you rehearse that one?" But at the same time, when you're looking at John Hamm, you're like, I kind of believe it. Like,
yeah, exactly. And so I think that is maybe accentuated or they put an exponent on it or whatever you have at the end, where he, you know, like you said, his mission is to kill Baby. But it's not. You don't see him as just like the desperate actions of a man fated to die.
No,
it's like he has. I don't know how you convey this with your eyes, but John Hamm does. When him and Baby are kind of like driving at each other, trying to drive each other's car. You know, they're touching nose to nose.
It's and so they're trying to stinking crazy.
Push each other's car or whatever, which totally works in this movie. Would be stupid elsewhere, but it's not Blues Brothers. It's Baby Driver. And
hey, I like Blues Brothers.
I do too. But I'm saying that's a comedy. Like, it gets away with it in a different way, you know. My point is that Baby and Buddy are looking. It sounds like we're talking about Elf, but no, we're talking about Baby Driver. They're looking at each other, and while Baby looks really determined, and Ansel Elgort is selling it as Baby. When you get the close up, like the Sergio Leone Good, Bad, and the Ugly close up of John Hamm's eyes. It's like that is a guy that is just he does not give an F about the consequences anymore.
Yep.
He does not care. It does not matter if he knew, like, in 5 seconds, I am going to be disemboweled. Doesn't matter to this guy. He is just laser focused on killing this person, on murdering another human being.
Yes.
And so the power of that in acting alone, I think, is all to Mr. Hamm's credit. So give it up for Johnny, everybody.
Give him a round of hams, honey cured hams.
Indeed.
Let's move on to Deborah, played by Lily James. She is the love interest to our main character here. And before we get into her acting or what they do with her character, I don't know if you had the same freaking visual deja vu, Justin, But when he sits in this diner, which is super retro and like old school, and she walks in and approaches him for the first time with her headphones off, the diner dress and her face looked like, seriously, like, did that remind you of anybody from Twin Peaks a little bit?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Spitting image of what, Madchen Amick? I don't know how to say her name.
Madchen, is it?
Madchen.
Yeah, something like, you might be right. I don't know.
They seriously look like they could be like twins, like so similar. I wonder if that was a casting choice, because the diner itself is, you know, it's not like a Twin Peaks world where it's otherworldly and weird things are going on with, you know, black lodges and such, but like there's a look there, man, that is very much like the character from Twin Peaks.
Absolutely. And then it does kind of, devolve into, devolve, that makes it sound like it's bad. But what I'm trying to say is it quickly asserts itself as its own world.
Sure.
So yeah, I kind of think that, and then I'm waiting for the Twin Peaks soundtrack, the walking bass line.
Yeah, exactly.
But
yeah.
It doesn't come, thankfully, because that would be a little freaky, and then I'd have to call David and sort it all out. And find my medication.
And he'd be like, the time is 9:37 p.m.
43.
Thanks, David.
And then it'd be over.
Yeah.
But it is interesting, because again, I think the dress that they make her wear, I don't mean just in the diner, but like the wardrobe that she wears while employed there, it's not rooted in reality anymore, right? But again, it's just kind of, I don't mean this in an exploitative sense. I mean that it's kind of fun in that it's just it's just another manifestation of Wright's visual style and of this world being unique and not reality.
Right.
Like, it would be a bit of a bummer, honestly, if she came out like wearing khakis and
a
like
Denny's
a Denny's
shirt.
yeah. Like that would be a killer, man.
It'd
and
be
again,
killer.
I don't mean that in any kind of like I'm all about seeing more skin or whatever, anything creepy like that. It's just
No, it just wouldn't make sense aesthetically. Like it wouldn't.
Right.
Yeah. It's not about ogling anyone. It's just, if she came out and she was in a Caro's uniform with like, it wouldn't make sense in Edgar Wright's world. And this world, right? It's like, how do we start this movie? We start with this like freaking bumping sequence where baby drives up, people get out and go do the robbery, and he's just like dancing in a car, and then that cuts to him doing his like opening credit sequence dance through the street. And this is where you get to see that like fully realized like crazy detailed precision of like the music choice plus the choreography, plus there's like graffiti on the walls behind him that match the lyric that happens to be happening while he's walking by. And there's character beat stuff in the lyrics too, right? Like it's talking about like a man who needs a thing. And like, it's like, it totally makes sense with what you're watching. It's, Edgar Wright has done music videos before, and you can see why he would be like the absolute perfect fit, because he has a real story to tell, but he understands how music can serve the movie. And what do you think about, this movie is one giant needle drop after another.
Yeah, it is. And that's not only the credit to Edgar Wright for figuring out and licensing all these songs, but I think the unsung hero might be Mr. Paul Matchless, who is the editor that apparently Edgar Wright told, essentially, you need to be on set with me every day.
Yeah.
Because this is his vision for, editing this is obviously, like we've just talked about with the needle drops and seeing words in graffiti as that word is being sung. That stuff can't happen by accident, And so it just is very clear that there was such a distilled, such a specific style and such an incredibly fine-tuned timing needed to make this work, that the challenge to me is really like how the heck are you going to edit this in a way that accomplishes that. So there's a great article, maybe we could link it even on our social media.
Okie dokie.
Travis, but there's an article that I had read a few years ago when this movie came out on a website called Premium Beat, and it was a interview with Paul Matchless.
Yeah.
And he talks about how he had worked with Mr. Wright to accomplish what they did, and essentially what they did is just Paul was on set every day, and as Edgar would shoot stuff. He would, even before they're done and they're looking at dailies, they'd shoot it. They'd get it to Paul. He'd try to sync it up, because they're working off the script. They're just shooting and editing on the same day.
Yeah.
And so if there was a part where it's like Paul's like, "Hey, no, we got it. This has got to be extended, or you need a different shot here, whatever." Okay, great, and they just go shoot it right then and there. So it just a really, for as amazing as the acting is and the directing, the very specific visual style. I feel like the guy that you never see and who doesn't walk the red carpet necessarily for this probably deserves a heck of a lot of credit for making Baby Driver what it is.
Yeah, well, he certainly didn't because of Dunkirk. Thanks a lot, Christopher Nolan. So as we work our way through the characters here, Lily James is Deborah. In general, just like she's really good. Like she sells again some dialogue that could be melodramatic as just like I believe it. It fits in the world. Nobody says a line in this movie that I'm like, it could have been like there could have been another take. There's no editing like lost here, but it's also not over edited where it's like cut, and it's exhausting. It's just like masterfully done. I don't know how else to put it. What about Isa Gonzalez as Darling? Not given, I don't think, as much to do, but she does quite a lot with what they give her.
She does, and she has, to me, she gives the closest thing to breaking the fabric of reality.
Yes.
And just stretching it just a little bit too far. I'm talking about their like shootout at the end.
Yeah.
Where it's almost, we get like just a couple percentage of like Hot Fuzz ridiculousness. And I think the reason it's forgivable, at least in my opinion, tell me if it's not forgivable for you. But the reason that we get, John Hamm on one hand has got like his AR-15 and is obviously, using these things called sights or optics and, looking through and aiming at things and then pulling the trigger. She's just got like a couple submachine guns, one in each hand, and is like,
down at waist level. Yes.
Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, her character is kind of
nuts,
impulsive, and nuts. Yes, exactly. That's a sign. Again, I feel like, Doctor, is that you?
It's me. Take all your pills.
Okay.
Put them in your mouth.
Okay. So that's how I do it.
You had them in the palm of your hand already.
Yeah, I'm just ready to go. When the doctor says, put them in your mouth, I'm just like, 10-4. So anyway, yeah, she I think sells it because she is unhinged, again, in a way that is kind of fun and relatable, in that I think we all maybe have encountered someone that is like impulsive, and it's like, oh, don't say that, you should really just let that go, or oh, don't do it. Why did you do that? And she is that, but taken to a much higher degree,
for sure.
So yeah, she doesn't. She is much more of a side character. She doesn't have a lot to do. But what she does, I don't have, like with Lily James, I don't have any complaints. I wouldn't want anyone else to do those roles.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think they're all really well cast and they fit the mold really well. There's a couple more side characters like that too, which we don't need to talk about for hours. But like we mentioned, not groovy JD, not groovy at all. And JD is the guy who he goes on the heist with Jamie Foxx the first time, and he leaves his gun behind, and he has a great moment where he's introduced, where he talks about his neck tattoo, and he says, like, what does your neck tattoo say hat? And he's like, used to say hate, but I got the E covered up so I could get, I have a better chance of getting jobs and job interviews or whatever. And he's like, oh, really? And he's like, yeah, who doesn't like hats? So just like,
well, and then he has the beautiful mix up with getting the Mike Myers
mask.
That's
so
right?
good. It's so good. I knew the minute he said like, okay, and the wardrobe is the Michael Myers mask from Halloween, and everyone's like, yep, check, got it. And I knew that was going to come back in some way. And as soon as he puts his mask on, he's like, what is this? It's like so perfect for this movie. And it doesn't end up mattering. Like, it doesn't become the downfall of the heist or anything. It's just like fun to go along with what's already happening.
Well, and with that scene too, again, we get really close to something that makes zero sense. But I think the movie gets away with it. And that's that the heist that JD and Bats are involved with Baby at first, very nearly gets derailed because some
A good
random
Samaritan,
guy
yes.
in a Dodge Ram has like a whole arsenal. He like is the Punisher apparently.
So ridiculous.
And so on my initial viewing in the movie, I'm thinking as it's going along, like, is this guy like undercover?
Yeah.
Was he watching them?
Yeah.
But no, he just freaking has machine guns, and he's just like he is that guns and ammo guy, I guess, that had been waiting for that moment.
This is my time. Yes, exactly.
Right, like I'm gonna get him now.
I am the good guy with a gun. I'm the guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think, to this movie's credit, I think because that is that guy, just, again, like every other character in this movie, just taken kind of to an extreme, but not to an extreme that it's like, okay, I don't, that's not a person anymore. He is that guy that's like, if that guy is going to exist in the world, if there's going to be that guy who's like, no, I've got a gun in my car, I'm going to stop these guys, I'm going to help the cops out. I mean, those people do exist.
Yes.
And so I think to give that guy, a little bit of credence and agency is kind of fun.
Yeah, it's fun. And I do think we're talking about humanity. One other example of making something deeper than it ever needed to be is, JD forgets his gun, right? And that's like, oh no, JD, that was a big mistake, right? Because, it's got fingerprints or it can be traced or whatever.
Yeah.
Don't do that, I guess, if you're robbing someplace, people. Just don't forget your gun.
Right.
Don't forget
the lesson here.
Yeah, your medical card and your ID and your gun.
Right.
So they get back to headquarters, and I just love that moment where like Jamie Foxx is in the car with Ansel Elgort's character Baby, and they look over at him, and he just says something about it's like, that guy's an idiot or something. But the look on JD's face is like, I'm dead. Like he knows, like he has this like real moment of like fear, and he just knows like I've really screwed the pooch, and then he does get dead. But it's deeper than it needs to be. They do more with that than they absolutely need to. And then there's CJ Jones' character, Joseph, who's like the adoptive father of Baby. Their relationship's really, it's like layered and nuanced, and he's kind of this voice of good speaking into Baby's ear, talking about his money, calling it dirty money. All that stuff is, that's where the heart of the movie kind of lies, really. I mean, the romance is what it is. It's romance, and it certainly goes as deep as a young romance can go. But really, the moral center of this is like Baby being pulled in one direction by his driving and his criminal lifestyle, and Joseph in a lot of ways. I mean, Baby does eschew violence. You can tell, like when they're in this first few heists and someone, he sees the blood on the ground because someone had to bop that guy in the face, or I don't think he got shot, but they don't really say. When he sees the blood, you can see him. He has remorse, and he like, for a moment, he's like, oh gosh, and then later on when Bats is going to blow, the Good Samaritan's face off on the freeway, he does a move where he turns the car real fast, but also knocks the shotgun out of the way. And what do you think? Does Joseph have a pull on him morally?
Yeah, I think obviously he does, and ultimately that's why I think Baby, wants to get him to safety, whether that's just filial feelings or his own morality kind of overriding selfishness, the selfishness of self-preservation. And I do like that they hired someone that is actually deaf, to play that character. I think that was a good choice, and to CJ Jones's credit, I mean, he sells the heck out of it from their very, very first interaction in the home. I buy that they are a family, albeit foster whatever, and it's just, again, another example of just a different, we're talking about like why does this movie work? And I think it's because there's no two characters that are like, they're kind of the same, or that person really didn't have much to do, even if they're not in there very much. We have freaking Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers in here as Eddie No-Nos, just like, and he's in here for a couple seconds, and he's able to sell it. And
what does he say? That's a no number one or something. Yeah. Some ridiculous, like,
yeah,
amazing.
It's just stupid but fun,
yeah.
And so I think CJ Jones just brings just another spectrum of here's someone else that exists in humanity. Here's someone else you can relate to.
And there's great little bits in there like that are like they sell the realness of it because like the peanut butter to the edges, that kind of thing, which is just a small detail, but it's like an idiosyncrasy that feels so true to life, it's just really good detail. Any other characters in here that there are some more, but I think most of them are covered pretty thoroughly by our however long this conversation has been. Should we get into like what the heck it's saying and whether it's worth our time?
Let's do it.
This is a section called Time Served.
You want about the law or something?
No, it's okay.
I'm so very sorry. I propose that we consider this matter closed.
I sure hope you didn't do anything stupid, Jackie. See you when I see you.
All right, so Justin, why don't you get us started in this section? How often would you rewatch it, and what the heck is it saying?
Well, it's such a fun movie that, you could watch this every few months. I mean, I'm not probably going to watch it every 2 months, but if I saw it twice a year, that would probably be... You just can. I don't feel like there's anything in here. There's some movies where it's like, I really liked that movie, but I didn't like this part, or, that was a little uncomfortable, or this is not that movie, and it has the blessing of actually saying something.
Yeah.
And what I think it's saying is that stripped of all the technical brilliance of this movie and all the wonderful music that just adds to depth for these characters, it says that humanity is driven by a need for community. I feel kind of like Christopher Nolan. I feel kind of stupid and pretentious saying some of this stuff. But, I mean, really, I do... The brilliance of this movie to me is that it's not a movie that is like, we're going to unlock some deeper truth. It's like, hey, this is a movie that's fun. Buckle up. It's going to be awesome. And it delivers on that level. But I think what it's saying is that, I guess people can do amazing freaking things when they're all talented. This is a movie that is saying that people need people. We need each other to kind of get through this thing, and that baby needs even some of these people that are bad, like Doc, to try to find the light. And none of these characters make the right decision always. Nobody in here, even Baby, just always makes the right decision. And so it's even... I don't think Edgar Wright was even really trying for this, Travis. Maybe he is, and he's another genius on another level too. But I feel like these are all just happy accidents of staying true to the essentials of what it means to be human, and what it means to kind of exist in the world where there is fallenness, where there is sin, whatever you want to call it. And how do we navigate that? And so unlike, if we can kind of try to bring it full circle, unlike Justice League, where the answer to that is just like, I don't know, I think we should all die. This movie is more like, no, we do have to work through these hard things. We do have to face death. We do have to come to some moral decisions about right and wrong, but then we can move on, and then we can, sip on a margarita. Then we can take a long drive down the 20 and just not worry about where we're headed. And so I think that's kind of the thesis of the movie, I think, is tied up into that line that you mentioned. And I think it works for that reason, because that's kind of where the audience wants to get to. We all, you're in the movie theater, maybe you've been working hard, and it's like, gosh, I've just been slaving away at work, or my boss is killing me, or whatever, or marriage ain't working out right, whatever. But that kind of idea of escapism, and maybe it's more of a Western idea, but it's tantalizing. Like, I want to get through the hard stuff, and I want to earn that right to get behind the wheel and just drive.
Yeah, I can't disagree, man. I think it's got more to say than it needs to even make my, I watch this, something like once a year, or even every few months. This is one of those movies where anytime someone was like, I haven't seen this, I'd be like, oh, we got to watch that. Like, it's just fun, and you could have fun with a group of people watching it. It does some things that I really, really like technically appreciate. You know, like Edgar Wright is so smart in the way he constructs sequences, especially when music is like the backbone to those sequences. And this is like a whole movie full of that. You know, he does that stuff in Shaun of the Dead. You know, there's a great sequence where they're like beating zombies with cricket paddles in Shaun of the Dead, where they're doing it to the beat of music, and Hot Fuzz, where they're like getting all their guns and like, you know, going with the shotguns to the beat of the, like all of that it's kind of in his DNA. But I feel like this might be peak Edgar Wright when he's not doing a pseudo parody of something, right? This is its own thing. The only thing it might be indebted to is, you know, other driving movies like Bullet, or, you know, The Italian Job, or, you know, stuff like that. That's, you know, just really car centric. But the characters are the thing here. You know, the characters are the thing. And, you know, Baby is like, you know, a PTSD character of sorts, right? Like he suffered this big loss that changed him physically and emotionally. I'm going to say, like, yeah, actions and consequences, like we talked about in Thief, they matter, and, you know, they really drive the story. But I think the thing I appreciate about this movie the most is its depiction of like romance. Like it's just not a thing that you see in film that is, it's like pure in what it is. And at the same time, it's not like so like crazy over the top, sappy, or melodramatic. Like I just believe that these two people shared a little bit of a common interest. You know, Baby and Deborah, they're both looking for something more, and that picture might include each other. And so like when they fall for each other, you know, it's believable, and it's a warm thing, like a feeling that it produces in the viewer. And it also it raises the stakes in a necessary way for the climax of the movie. So yeah, I think this is one of the best romantic comedies I've seen in a while. And the action sequences are killer. It's fun, so much fun. And yeah, I can't say anything negative about it. I think it was a great way. So many heists in this one movie to end our heist series on. And I think we are ready, Justin, to vroom vroom into the 40s, don't you think?
Let's get in the Buick and blast off.
Yes. Well, that just about does it, Justin, for walking through the heist movies of season 2. I had so much fun. How about you?
Yeah, it was a little different than the 30s, because it wasn't 30s movies, it was heist movies.
That was the main difference, yes.
Yeah, so now that we're not doing heist movies, let's go do 40s movies.
Let's
do it right.
Yes.
Let's finally get to Bob Newhart.
Yeah, he's still on the line, folks.
Autobots, roll out.
See you next week. Bye.
Let the movie speak.
Hey, since you're still here and still listening, thank you, by the way, we'd like to ask an additional favor of you.
We have social media. It's a thing on the internet, and all you need to do is find us on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook and like and subscribe. I know this is annoying, but we have to ask you because we want more people to hear the show. In addition to that, if you could rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, we would greatly appreciate it. See you next week. Bye.